Chapter 34. Good, the Sphinx says flatly, though I can still see whispers of thought. Try again. It is several days since Huon first brought up the risk of war, and it has him distracted. That is worse, the Sphinx says, a borderline growl. The mind reading does not hurt anymore, for which Roshner is thankful. If they go for long periods at once, an occasional bead of sweat will drip from his brow. Nothing like how it used to be. My apologies, Roshner sighs. It is just... War is heavy on your mind, the Sphinx observes. But I need not look into your mind for that. You wear it on your face. But you do not wear the face of a seasoned warrior. You wear the face of one who is green. You have heard of it, but you know not its consequences. Her words are true, to a degree. He has battled. He has been close to death. He has been betrayed. But a battlefield with soldiers too numerous to count, fighting and coating the ground in blood? No. This he has not seen, nor does he ever wish to. Roshner sighs. All I wish is to save my brother, and then to find my sister. He has put too much into finding and helping Kadoric that on occasion he forgets about Asra, and he feels shameful for it, then angry. Asra can take care of herself. He must believe that. Otherwise, it is too painful. If it is the will of the gods, you will succeed in both ventures. Roshner looks at the Sphinx, surprised. Her flat tone is still there, much to his annoyance, but this is the most heart-lifting thing she has said, if he can call it that. What you currently lack, the Sphinx carries on, changing the topic, is the ability to empty your mind. The trick is not to block intruders from coming in, but to supply them with nothing worth taking. Roshner shakes his head. That makes no sense. Precisely why it works. He knits his brows together, trying to build a connection. Do not strain yourself, the Sphinx cautions. I admit it is not something easily understood, but there will be some point in the future when you will. Then she changes her tone. I admit, your wall is impressive, she murmurs stately. You have me believing only the most trained readers will be able to intercept your thoughts. Though if you come across any of that stature, your demise may follow. This catches Roshner off guard. Demise? What do you mean, demise? The Sphinx rises and walks around slowly. She glances around the room, but shows little interest in doing so. Most readers need to be within a short proximity of their target, she informs. The more skilled can do so from greater distances, and very few beyond this use amplifiers to increase their range. Now, doing so provides a great challenge. The reader typically, if their target's location is uncertain, is required to read the minds of everyone in the general area in order to find their target. This is tedious, strenuous, and in some cases results in the reader overlooking their mark, so most do not bother with such tasks. What starts out bad ends on what Roshner considers a good note, of sorts. So, I should not have much to worry about then, he concludes. As soon as the words leave his mouth, Roshner wants to bite his tongue. The Sphinx stares at him coolly. Disappointed? There are, however, some exceptions, she states. If a reader gains possession of an item of significant value to the target, it will act as a guide. Hair, blood, and other items will do the same. but some more accurate than others. Suddenly, Rosner is more curious than cautious. Why tell me this? It is important for all those who deal and comprehend with the art of mind reading to understand. He knows there is more, something she is not telling him. He does not know how, since she gives nothing away, but he knows. There is something else, he presses. She stares at him coolly, collected, unmoving. For a brief second their eyes meet. Almost immediately he averts his gaze to her forehead. There is power in her stare. Not good, not evil, just pure, unadulterated power. It frightens him, but he does his best not to show it. I have a mind to let you be on your journey's way, she tells him, but I need you to swear a vow to me in return. Never build an attachment to anything. Next day, the packed bags on their backs, the group starts their way southeast, the light of Savonia barely visible over the treetops. Are you positive the Sphinx said this is where to go? Huon clarifies. Again. It is odd. He seems almost neglectful to leave, or rather, reach their destination. Yes, Rosner reaffirms. You realize this will take many black nights, the dwarf mutters. Cyan shrugs as they follow the dirt path away from the last of the tree houses. You can always stay here. And swing a hammer day or night, Canyu huffs. A dwarf I may be, but I have other hobbies. Yes, Rosner says, but your hobbies tend to be frowned on by those afflicted by them. The dwarf grumbles to himself, but otherwise remains silent. The others chuckle lightly. It seems them spending weeks here was good for them as a group. Despite their reasons for the trek in the first place, every night they would meet, drink, and exchange that day's ventures. Some were more welcoming than others, and that is the way of it. Eventually, they all shared some aspects of their upbringing, even some they still kept from each other in the past. Huon says he was born near Klena, and actually spent most of his early life playing music. He never brought up his parents, though. After he was old enough to travel, he hitched rides with various travelers from town to town. After a while, someone accidentally slipped him something. Everyone, of course, knows it must have been a rose coin, but even being the only ones on the road, none will risk talking blatantly about the details. The orc said after they cleared things up, he realized his ability to play with the mind, and that has been his main focus of study since. Cyan, too, admits to be born in Greenman, but rather in the far west near the God's Bowl. She has been trained to fight since she was a child, hand and sword. Over the years, more and more strange creatures had slowly come south from beyond the spine, always warring with her tribe. It is here she grows silent for a moment. Then, through forced breathing, she explains she was told to find help when the monsters started to become overwhelming. She could not find anyone in the nearby area, and those she could find were having issues themselves. Cyan returned to the desolation of the small tribe. For a while thereafter, she howled herself out as a sellsword, traveling from place to place. Until she built a small reputation for herself, she recounted several instances where those who hired her, and the other sellswords, thought that they could take advantage of her, being the young, attractive female that she was. As she recalls some of her tales, Rosner cannot help but think she still is attractive. But before the thought can gain traction, he pushes it to the side. After proving herself, no one talked to her unless their intentions were true. Then, after one task, she found a rose coin mixed with her talons. the gold a stark contrast to the copper. She sought out her employer, but did not have to travel far. They were already in her house. She tells them an offer was made, and she agreed. Ganyu still keeps most of his past to himself, neglecting to mention where he was born, and only admitting to a disagreement between him and other members of his clan. In order to survive, he quickly became an expert in sleight of hand and lockpicking. He was caught picking the wrong house on the wrong night, and the deal was for him to work instead of jail. Then there is Kisra. It takes a long while for her to open up to them. When she does, the girl says she was born of a conclave in Shenvair. She avoided her parents and spent most of her waking moments in the study. By happenstance, Tyriane came across her family on one of his ventures. He stayed several nights and grew fond of her. He requested he take Kisra to do some studying elsewhere. She chokes before telling them her parents did not seem to care. And they all know about Rosner, in some cases in more detail than he would prefer, but he cannot control what they already know, only what happens moving forward. Over the next several days, they come across several settlements of various volumes. Some they pass through, at others they rest for the night. They meet many patrols as well. It seems the Sphinx requested a large guard throughout the region. Every confrontation, Rosner shows them a decree from the Sphinx to let them pass unhindered. 3 days past 1.5 cycles is how long it takes to reach the river of Mars, the first of many before them. The party collapses, sore and exhausted from travel. Savona hovers over the horizon of a nice, wide plain. Nothing but white, rolling hills and their occasional bare tree surround them. His storm has been harsh thus far, and they are only halfway through his reign. Huon clears an area for camp, and Kanyu starts on the fire, not without struggle, and several strings of curses. They break out dinner and eat in silence, all too cold to talk. They left the road long ago, knowing it would extend at least 2 days to their travel. Over the course of it, 2 days means little, but making their own path means they will be done 2 days earlier. Not long into the morning travels, they reach the river, a roaring torrent of ice-cold water from the snowcaps in the spine. At least it would be during Mars's reign. With most of its heat dwindling, the flow of the river is almost stagnant. When normally the banks are several hundred, if not 1,000 feet apart in some areas, they are now no more than 50. Dropping down the bank proves some difficulty. The ground is still soft and, in some places, unstable. Kisra demonstrates this by finding an extra soft section of riverbed and sinking to her knees before promptly falling forward. She cries out and throws her hands in front of her. Her hands disappear beneath the surface. Barely. Cyan helps her the rest of the way. Uninjured, save her pride, and covered in mud, she walks beside her in a sour mood. Then, while wading through the water, Kanyu, who is already up to his waist, goes under. Huon snatches him back up. On the other side, the dwarf, soaked through, tries to convince them that a river spirit pulled him. Rosner has never heard of such creatures. Cyan keeps silent, so he does not know what she thinks. Huon, however, speaks up. "Most do not know of them," he tells the dwarf, "and most that do not believe in their existence. I am surprised to find you are one of the few." Kanyu stands abruptly and points a thick finger at the orc. "Do not belittle my intelligence. I know what I saw." Then, realizing his pride is getting the better of him, and likewise revealed more questions than answers, he storms off to the other bank. His feet slosh in his boots as the riverbed clings to them, creating sucking sounds as he stomps away. The others follow, but not before Rosner spots Kisra glance back at the water. She catches him watching her and hurries after the dwarf. Rosner's gaze lingers over the water, wondering what such a creature would look like if one existed. He stays there, probably longer than he should, staring at the water. But nothing shows itself. He turns and hurries after the others. At a quarter cycle, they wander into a small town and buy horses to ease their travel. At least some of them. Against Huon's and Rosner's argument, Kanyu frees a stable of 2 beasts. The orc stares the dwarf down when he strides up to the camp, horses in tow, but says nothing. With the money they earned from work in Klena, they also bought food and other supplies. After a half cycle, they cross the road of the ancients. It is said this is the path those who descended from the first city took when they began to once again wander omnimentus. The snow has almost completely disappeared, revealing 2 rows of large stones set in the ground, wide enough for Rosner to lay across one and not be able to touch both ends. Along either side of the road are strange obelisks that stand twice his height and are positioned at apparent random intervals. He pauses at one and runs his hand over the etching. If he is not mistaken, these arrangements of cuts and gashes match the writings in the library of the Phoenix. Not that he can use any of them. When the group reaches 3 3/4 cycles since Klena, the Istre Sea comes into view. They set camp near the shore, near its southwest side. Not for the horses, they would still be a full cycle behind where they are now, or more. 2 days short of 2.5 cycles, and they finally reach Doripin. Once they hit the forest-ridden country, their pace slows again. But the forest is not their only reason. Stories persist of the forests of Doripin swarming with bandits, mercenaries, rogue soldiers, and creatures to be kept in stories. While they wish to push through as fast as they can, their eyes remain on the shadows. A couple nights in, Rosner stirs in his sleep. Then he feels a body press against his, and hot breath whisper in his ear, making his body stiffen. "Do not move," Cyan whispers. She lazily drops her arm over his body. Rosner's mind runs rampant. What is going on? Is she awake? Asleep? She makes herself comfortable against him. Rosner decides to test the waters and put his arm around her. But before he can, Cyan is gone and the ringing of steel on steel cuts through the otherwise silent night. Rosner is on his feet in seconds, after recovering from what occurred and what is currently happening. Caught in the action, someone starts shouting orders. No one that Rosner recognizes. Across the small fire, someone in rough tag armor kicks at Kanyu's bedroll to find only piles of dried grass and sticks. Nearby, Huon's illusions a copy of himself and runs in the opposite direction, such that 2 bodies seem to depart from the same place. Rosner hears someone shuffle through the grass behind him. He turns, narrowly missing a swinging blade, and falls in the process. He rolls as a longsword bites dirt. More voices add to the first. Sounds like 6. Give or take 1 or 2. Most are crude, but 2 sound more intelligent. Rosner rolls again. He feels the heat of the small fire and steals a glance towards it. He grabs a short, thick stick and rolls again before finding his feet. After sidestepping a lunge, Rosner smacks the hand of his assailant. The stick snaps in 2, but the blade falls to the ground. A dark man with short, wild facial hair stares at him bewildered. Then, before he can blink, the man puts Rosner into a grapple. After struggling momentarily on their feet, Rosner takes the man to the ground. They roll around until he has the man pinned with his knees. Out of pure adrenaline, he He proceeds to punch his face until he stops moving. The man's chest moves slowly when Rosner stands and looks around. Cyan acquired another blade and keeps two more at bay. From the shadows, Rosner hears Kanyu yell a string of curses, followed by a triumphant, "Aha!" Huan is still nowhere to be seen. But halfway across the small clearing, Rosner sees a hooded figure stealing away a screaming and kicking Kisra. Rosner relinquishes the unconscious man of his blade and sprints after them. Moments before Rosner is upon them, Kisra manages to snake herself away. Though facing his opponent, Rosner is more convinced she is let go. Towering before him is a green orc who unsheaths his greatsword from behind him. Kisra scurries back near the fire. Part of Rosner wants to go with her, but he stands his ground. He has to remind himself he has fought worse odds and come out victorious. The orc arcs for his neck, but at the last second switches his angle and cuts across his body. Rosner reads it, not that it does him much good. He blocks the strike, but the blow jars his body, and Rosner is sent flying. Somehow, he manages to maintain the grip on his sword. He growls as he rolls to his feet. Why does he always end up on his back during a fight? They square up. Rosner now has taste of the orc's strength, so he can adapt his technique. But so far that is all he has. The two exchange several blows, most consisting of Rosner being on the defense. Rosner lands a few shallow cuts, but they do nothing to the orc, save maybe anger him. When Rosner finally turns to the offensive, it is short-lived. The orc blocks an attack to his thigh by sticking his sword into the ground and holding it steadfast with an iron grip. The other hand backhands Rosner. Hard. His head snaps to the side, tossing him off balance, but miraculously, he maintains his footing. Blood drips down from the side of his face and into his mouth. The orc grins and advances. Despite being dazed, Rosner manages to avoid the more deadly strikes. He also lands a few deeper cuts of his own. If Rosner can keep his endurance up, he might just make it. The two continue their exchange. Then the orc aims one strike in a lazy arc at Rosner's head. Deprived of energy himself, Rosner cuts deep into the orc's arm, and the creature drops his weapon. Weaponless, he tries to grapple Rosner. Rosner sidesteps out of the creature's reach and brings his blade across the thick neck. A gurgle escapes the orc's lips as his knees buckle and his face falls into the dirt. Rosner's own legs give way. He falls to his knees, only managing to stay upright by leaning on his sword. Around him, things seem distant, but concluding. Huan consults Kisra. Cyan dispatches the second combatant, who lets out a sharp cry before being silenced. Kanyu still spurts obscenities in an unfocused voice somewhere nearby. He has no clue how long he stays there, but at some point Huan lays a heavy hand on his shoulder and ushers him calmly to the fire. As they approach, Kanyu comments on what befell them. "I'm out of practice," he complains. "I've not fought that hard in many Maris's reigns." "You ran," Cyan points out. "I made sure I had the advantage," the dwarf counters. "And what about Huon?" The swordswoman shrugs. "Illusions are quite useful. They cause confusion." "And a grass figure does not?" Cyan holds her tongue. Kanyu takes pride in her silence. "Do you always do that?" Rosner asks aloud. Thinking back, the dwarf is always awake before the group, and in most cases, he takes the first watch. The dwarf answers with a shrug. Off to the side, Kisra breaks out crying. Cyan walks over to her. They exchange a few silent words. Kisra shakes her head violently. Cyan says something else, then returns to the group around the dim fire. "She believes she only brings burden. Cyan relays. Her voice is restricted, like she does not like saying the words. All she thinks she has managed to do is get captured. Momentarily. Kanyu huffs. The girl is not wrong. She has much to offer, Huan says sternly. Then more to himself he adds, I simply wish I knew what. Rossner eyes her. He thinks back to Lass and the trouble they ran into at the tavern. Why does she not trust them? And why would she trust him? Either way, Kanyu growls, cutting into Rossner's thoughts. We have more things to worry about. They cut our horses loose.